My husband, 38 male, and I, 39 female, have been happily married for over 2 years. We own a home and do pretty well for ourselves. Financially, he generally maintains the finances for our family. My husband's mother and sister live a few hours away, and I've always felt that they were very abusive towards him. They speak down to him, disrespect him, and essentially make him feel it's his responsibility to clear up their financial mishaps and poor choices now, to the main issue my husband's sister and mother have been renting a home from another family member well under market value, at least $3,000 less than what it would rent, for now. The owner family member is decided to sell the home. Mind you, it's been trashed and not maintained by the sister and mother. They have little to no respect for having had it so good for so long. The owner gave them 90 days to vacate the premises immediately. The sister and mother asked my husband to help them buy a home. They live and work in one of the most expensive housing markets in the US. Additionally, they do not qualify for the type and amount of loan they would need to even buy a modest home in the area, and they refuse to move to a more affordable area, lower credit score, no major assets, etc. after a lot of back and forth. They finally asked my husband to co-sign on a very basic older home that cost $1 million. I immediately told them absolutely not. And I vowed my concerns to my husband. He's usually very level-headed and financially savvy. But I had to be the one to push him and his family for some sort of plan on how this would all work to go from paying $1,000 a month in rent to well over $6,000 a month on a mortgage. Not even including bills seems questionable at best and a terrible decision at worst. I asked my husband why they couldn't move into a modest apartment and make a plan to buy in a year or two. He didn't have an answer, but agreed that they absolutely needed a plan in order for him to engage again after several weeks of back and forth with his family. They had yet to provide any solid plan on how to pay the mortgage bills and avoid default who would be responsible for repairs. No idea. Finally last week, before I left for a work trip, my husband told me he would not be co-signing on the home and that they had done zero planning. I was so relieved and was able to relax on my trip. Well, I returned home at the end of the week and was taking a shower when he walked in and told me he co-signed for the home. To say I was taken back is an understatement. I went through a range of emotions quickly. But it wasn't until the next morning that what he had done had really hit me. He made a risky investment with people who don't respect him and did it behind my back after assuring me he wouldn't. He kept telling me I was safe from any potential impact, but I didn't understand how that could be. I asked him to walk me through the conversation, the plans, and any assurance that our own assets were safe. He couldn't. Then he dared to tell me, at least I decided to tell you, that is when I lost it. I felt betrayed and disrespected. I cried and screamed and told him how could he not see how they used him. I told him I was questioning his integrity and our relationship. We're also in the midst of the IVF process, and it's been extremely hard on me and my body. I told him I didn't think he deserved to be the father of my children. And if we did have children, his family would have limited contact and not be allowed around my children. There are other instances of how they've treated me disrespectfully, that I have even distanced myself from them. That's also another reason why my husband decided for us to move away from them. Back to the subject. At first he was remorseful, but then he got defensive of his family, even though I and many others have tried to show him how abusive they are. I told him if he wanted any chance of making our relationship right, He was to immediately work with his mother and sister to write a contract that he had majority ownership in the home, so that if they continued to make poor decisions in default, he could sell the house to no one's surprise. His family wouldn't agree to these terms because they believe living there is enough to solidify it's theirs. For the last 3 days I've asked over and over again why he made this drastic decision without a plan. My friends agree that this is a divorce-worthy offence, but the reality is besides this, we have a wonderful life together, and I love him dearly. So am I the idiot for calling my husband stupid and threatening divorce over co-signing the loan? Not the idiot he has just committed you and your family, consisting right now of you and your husband, to $1 million debt in an asset he has absolutely no ownership. Stock in that is not an investment. It's assuming the responsibility of paying for their house. It's grossly irresponsible on his part. And here is the worst part your husband has incurred. A debt in many states' debt is a community property. Honey, listen. If your husband dropped dead tomorrow, you would still be on the hook for that mortgage. This was a historically bad decision on his part. You need to contact an attorney to protect yourself to say absolutely nothing of any community property assets you and your husband own in the event of a divorce, borrowing an incredibly generous act from your husband, your combined net worth will effectively decline by $1 million unless he accepts full and unconditional responsibility for the debt during divorce proceedings. He royally forked you both with this. My goodness, she needs at least $1 million life insurance policy on him. That's not a joke, she needs to do that immediately. Like as in within the next few days. Divorce takes time. She could face massive issues if he died before they get divorced. Opie should probably go with $2 million insurance minimum. He has shown you to be irresponsible. What happens if you have college funds for your kids? And his family feels entitled. I'm so sorry you had trouble conceiving, but I'm glad a kid doesn't tie you to this mess. If you stay married to him, you'll be on the hook when it comes apart. Not if when it goes wrong. His mother and sister can't afford this place. They never intended to be able to afford this place. They know they can talk him into bailing them off again when they inevitably stop paying. I divorce his butt and make sure he owns that disaster 100%. So I, male 23, recently had a significant argument with my wife, 25. The background: my wife and I got married last year, and just over a week ago, we became parents to a beautiful little girl. She comes from a single-parent family and was raised without any siblings by her mother. They're very close, and my mother-in-law. And I get along well. On the other hand, I come from a large family with 5 siblings, and my parents raise me. My mother adores children and loves having them around every grandchild. She treats like her own. However, my mother and my wife don't get along very well. They are respectful in each other's presence, but don't have a strong connection. My wife made it clear that she didn't want my mother to visit us in the hospital, which I understood given my mother's enthusiasm, especially with new grandchildren. I thought it was fair since my wife was the one going through the hard work, and I was there to support her, not make demands. Here's where things got complicated. The delivery was painful and had several complications lasting over 40 hours. My wife was exhausted afterward and was given medication to help her sleep. She was deeply asleep during this time. I received a text from my mother, who lives nearby, asking how it went. And if she could visit, I agreed, but suggested we meet in the hospital's visiting area. Since my wife was resting, I took my daughter and met up with my mother. and they stayed for about 30 minutes before leaving when I returned to the room. With my daughter, my wife had woken up and asked where we'd been. I explained, and she fell silent last night. Her mother, my mother-in-law, arrived after travelling a considerable distance. The argument ensued with my wife considering me inconsiderate for allowing my mother to see our daughter first. She wanted her mother to be the first to see our child and didn't want my mother to visit the hospital. I found this unreasonable as I'd ensured my mother didn't meet my wife. The argument got heated, and although we made up, tension still lingered. I the idiot here, come on. You know, you are the idiot. How could you not be? You do know you're married to your wife, not your mom, right. And your wife is the child's mom, not your mother, even though she treats all her grandchildren like they are hers while the new mom was unconscious. She woke up in an empty room with no baby or husband. This is some next-level betrayal, 40 hours of labour, and you steal my baby while I'm drugged up sleeping. What is wrong with him, and what is wrong with his mother? Mrs. I have 6 grandkids, and I'm the grandparent of the year. If he doesn't know better, she certainly should have. Does he think things will improve now if I had a rocky relationship with my daughter-in-law who had a traumatic birth and knew she didn't want me there? I would stay away from the hospital. I would abide by the new mother's rules and ensure she had a great first visit with her mom. Over time, I would do my best to create a stronger bond for my grandchild. What the heck, who does this honestly? I'm more furious about him bringing a brand new baby into the waiting room around. God knows what germs, but yeah, up. You are the idiot for disrespecting your wife, and you deserve whatever's coming. It's a really good thing that you're close to your mom. I feel like you'll be living with her again. Real soon. You just showed your wife who the most important person is to you, and it wasn't her. It was my 24 female boyfriend's 24M sister's 27th birthday this past weekend. My boyfriend told me about his plan with his brother, 29. I think to push their sister's face into the birthday cake during the cake cutting. I asked him if this was a tradition in their family, and he said no, they just wanted to screw with her in a fun way on her birthday. I told him that he should at least tell his sister they would do it, and he said that would be no fun since she wouldn't even agree. I kept telling him not to do it then, but he told me it would be fine. I decided to tell my boyfriend's sister about it ahead of time so that she could duck if she needed to, or something. She told me thanks for letting her know anyway. My boyfriend and I went to her party yesterday, and my boyfriend and his brother were right next to their sister during the cake cutting. I saw their hands behind her head as she was bending down to blow out the candles out of nowhere. It was like she had eyes at the back of her head or something. LOL. She quickly got back up and maneuvered, and I guess somehow she pushed the older brother's, the 29-year-old face into the cake after he seemed to try to do it to her. It was pretty funny at the time since everybody but my boyfriend and his brother were laughing before we left the party. My boyfriend asked me if I tipped his sister off before the cake cutting, and I admitted it and told him I had to, since it would be wrong to humiliate her on her birthday without her consent. My boyfriend was a bit upset, but he said he wasn't that upset since his sister ended up pushing their other brother's face into the cake instead, and not his I the idiot. Not the idiot, you are the best. That was a great thing to do for the sister. On the other hand, your boyfriend's rationale that you were being mean to him is okay, because only his brother got cake-faced is terrible, very bad. Your boyfriend wanted to do something unpleasant. He was dead in a really funny way. Everybody at the party was laughing except for him and his brother, because they wanted everybody to laugh at his sister. He's got a mean streak at the very least. He was okay since it wasn't his face, so why would his sister be okay with it? being her face. This is red flag behavior. This is a man who thinks it's funny to humiliate women. So just remember how he thinks it was a funny idea. If you ever marry him, you will be wearing your wedding cake as a joke. My girlfriend makes a lot of money, around $130,000 as a software engineer. I'm also in tech, but as a C++ gaming developer, I only make $755,000. I'm considering switching now since the gaming industry takes advantage of us. She's cheap and her family isn't poor. By any means, they have multiple rental properties. She has 2 properties herself, one we live in, and split expenses, and a duplex she rents out. I do get lower than market rent, which I appreciate, and with a cat it's hard to find places to begin with. But other than that, she's really cheap. She had a 180,000 miles car that had broken down twice. And the mechanic and I are both told her to replace it. She finally did when it broke on the highway, and she got a $144,000 car and was sad. Her savings went down. She could buy a Lambo in cash without trouble, but she's so cheap. She saw a $23,000 car that she liked a lot more, but chose the cheaper one. Instead, she doesn't eat dinner often to save money. Intermittent fasting is now a thing. But she's been doing it since college to save money. She's remained trim, which is rare with a desk job, but she does it purely to save money. She never eats out, and we bring a Tupperware to lunch, and then fast until breakfast, which is always oatmeal and a banana. I've lost weight living with her, but man, and is it boring. I've tried to take her out, but when I do, I have to snatch the bill away so she doesn't see it. If she does, she'd probably faint. Especially with today's prices, she never eats out because of the price. And it's hard to get her even to order a drink with a meal, because she's so used to never drinking anything but water. Because she feels like even a pop or juice is too expensive. A bunch of friends and I were going out to eat, and they were talking about vacations, and I mentioned a vacation we took to Hawaii. There was the option to direct fly or layovers, which was double. The time it was $200 a ticket more for the direct flight, but it would save us 6 hours, and I convinced her after lots of back and forth to take the shorter trip. But she wasn't happy. She also insisted we stay at an Airbnb campsite in someone's backyard in Hawaii because hotel rooms were expensive. We also still cooked every meal from a camping stove she had. I was a bit tipsy and told this story, and people my friend were shocked because who goes to Hawaii and does this? But one friend mentioned it to her a few days ago, and she's been mad at me for complaining to everyone she's cheap. But it's not like everyone doesn't already know, and she's pretty upfront about it. Am I the idiot for complaining to my friends that my girlfriend is so cheap? You are the idiot. I hope she finds someone who doesn't care about material things like you. She seems smart with a good head on her shoulders. Who cares about what car she got? It goes down in value the moment you drive it off the lot anyway. And who cares about where you stay in Hawaii as long as you have a place to stay? The last time I went to Hawaii, I was only in my hotel room to sleep and shower the rest of the time. I was outside enjoying my vacation, not the idiot. This isn't sustainable. The woman skips meals and doesn't allow you to relax on a vacation. She doesn't want to actually engage in the society she's living in, and she's happy to force you to go without having to hide the bill and cook from a camp stove on vacation. Despite having the meals to actually relax, it's not okay, and you told it. Like it is. So she knows it's not appropriate behavior. She isn't changing. You will have to decide whether this is something you can permanently overlook. Also, I don't think mentioning that your girlfriend insisted you camp out instead of getting a nice, comfy hotel is the kind of egregious offense. The others see it as she lives life her way that clashes with you. and you're going to have to make a relationship decision about whether to accept it nothing to do with anyone being an idiot.